So I understand that Nintendo has been going crazy over the last 2 months of my absence. First with the 22.0 update coming along, with the amazing handheld boost, along with the jealousy of Nintendo haters over the success of Pokopia, then straight down to the bad stuff with the cut in production and increase in physical game prices, I guess. I'm sure the haters are celebrating this a little too much, I guess. Then brewing up some more arguments with the leak of games and general direct coming from Nate the Hate. As I'm making this video, I'm sure there's even more to come because I can't keep up with it all. But how about we slow down a little and address those stuff all one by one before we get into the spicy stuff. Starting off with the good stuff of this video, talking about the leaks of the next video, then moving on to some of the bad stuff of Nintendo in the video after that. I might be a Nintendo YouTuber, but that doesn't make me biased towards Nintendo's dirty tricks, which is why I'm not going to skip over the bad Nintendo stuff that is going on in our gaming world. Although I might skip over the Pokopia stuff because that is a whole different type of video on itself. I might not even bother talking about it till later. But now let's go over the 22.0 update before we get into the leaks in the next video. So starting off with the 22 update, I guess you already got the gist of it. But I'm here, talking about my personal experience with what I saw in the 22 update. And it's nothing really new, I get it. They always have updates for the Nintendo, similar to what they had with PS5, Xbox, and Steam sometimes. But this one is significant as it presents a feature that gamers never thought was possible on the Switch 2. I mean, it's sad that they don't have those feature updates for the Switch 1 as well, despite the Switch 1 going through the same 22.0 update. And I'm sure there are sad, Switch 1 players right now and all hanging on to their 9-year-old Switch 1 so far. But this is a different conversation for another video, as we are going to talk about all the features available to the 22.0 update, starting off with the friends list notes, basically similar to the contacts on your phone, where you get to basically give a personal note about someone on your Switch friends list. However, the note isn't shared to the party you're writing the note about, which means you can basically say anything about that friend and they will never know about it unless they steal your Switch and look at it themselves or hijack your Switch or something. Like I said, similar to the contacts feature on your phone. And thank God that this is, one of the features that I think might be available for both Switch 1 and Switch 2. I never tested it on Switch 1, but it was fun, testing it on Switch 2. I really hope that it really is a feature that is available also for Switch 2. Now, the next feature focuses on the Switch 2's Gamechat improvements. For those of you who haven't used Gamechat, there were several problems with the feature, given that it was difficult to join in a room and the quality of the screen share was very blurry and it was running at 10 frames per second. But I guess they now fixed it this time. You can basically get invited or join a room instantly without initially setting up your, initial game chat. Unless you're trying to create a room yourself, then you will need that initial setup. Now, there is still the part where you have to have a Switch 2 to use it at all. And you have to have a standard, NSO account to even join in. In fact, the long 9-month free trial they gave us is actually about to expire by the end of March 31st. It might have been expired when I'm posting this video. So if y'all are planning to continue using Gamechat, then you better have an NSO account. And now the share screen, the screen share, it looks much better than it used to. The frame rate increased, the resolution looked better for a small size screen. And I understand that some people are going to look at this and they're gonna be like, I mean, it's so right. Overrated as F. Now, let me remind you that you're the one who complained about this in the first place, alright? It doesn't matter if you were actually serious or not. I know I was serious. I seriously didn't like the bad quality and the 10 FPS. Because whether you are serious or not, you were part of the majority that was barking like a wild dog over the Switch 2's minor setbacks and acting like it was some big deal. I mean, I didn't really act like it was some big deal, but I still recognize the problem, and I'm happy that they fixed it. Now, what's wrong with you? Okay, sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just dealing with some people who only know how to complain about stuff. Not necessarily Nintendo. They do that sometimes with Steam, PS5, and Xbox as well. I don't know. They're just chasing clout or something. But anyways, they fixed the screen share quality. Let's go. And as for some of the other updates, yeah, you've also got some other bug fixes and whatnot. Some minor stuff that isn't really worth mentioning, but kudos to them for fixing some bugs in the system that we barely recognized. So we won't have to face that problem if we do recognize that problem somehow. And this is where the update gets spicy, as we are going to talk about the brand new handheld boost that they added to the Switch 2. And this is a real huge thing that finally came to the Switch 2. So, what is handheld boost mode? Now, don't confuse it with the Switch One's automatic boost mode, where the Switch One overclocks its processing power when playing heavy games like Breath of the Wild or what's the other game, Tears of the Kingdom. Because the handheld boost on Switch 2 allows you to play your Switch 2 and Switch 1 games as if you were playing it on dock mode on the Switch 2. You can basically revisit your Switch 1 games at 1080p resolution, all in the handheld mode of Switch 2. Now, I know it doesn't really sound significant and all, because at the end of the day, you could just dock your Switch 2 onto your TV screen and have the same effect. In fact, handheld boost actually drains your battery faster, similarly to how the docking station drains your battery just as fast as well. But the difference is that the docking station is plugged into a power supply, preventing your Switch 2 from instantly shutting down. So I guess handheld boost can be used indoors, but it immediately loses its value once you decide to travel out with the console. Unless you have a very powerful power bank, which I personally use for both my phone and my Switch 2 when I get out. So I guess I won't be facing this problem, but people are still gonna face that problem for those who don't really have a power bank like me. So getting back to the topic, how is the handheld boost significant in that situation where you can just dock your Switch 2? Well, it first stems from the fact that all Switch 1 games are 720p on handheld, which isn't really a problem when you play the game on a Switch 1 console since the Switch 1 uses a 720p screen. But for the Switch 2 with a 1080p screen, it appears a little blurry since the Switch 1 games are still played at 720p on that same 1080p screen. And I understand that they have applied some upgrades to some Switch 1 games, some for free, some with an upgrade fee, like, Mario Brothers Wonder, Bella Park. But that doesn't change the problem where most of the Switch 1 games are still running at 720p on a 1080p Switch 2 console. Which is why the handheld boost can reject all that blur by increasing the resolution to 1080p for all the Switch 1 games. And the second reason is that there are a lot of Switch 2 gamers that prefer the handheld mode of the Switch 2 rather than the docked version. I mean, I personally prefer the docked mode simply because it allows me to play with my family and friends on TV. But when it comes to single player games, I'm kind of on both sides. It doesn't really make a difference to me whether I'm playing on handheld or on dock mode, although the majority of Switch 2 buyers that thoroughly tested the console's usage have seen more perks playing the game on handheld than on dock mode. Not trying to say dock mode is bad, it's pretty amazing, but not compared to handheld. And that is despite the fact that the quality of dock mode is 4 times better than on handheld, because handheld is 1080p, and 4K 1080p to 4K is basically 4 times the resolution. It's basically 4 times the pixels if you actually count them. So, given the perks of handheld over docked, not saying that docked doesn't give its own perks again, it really shows that being able to play the quality and performance of docked in a handheld is outstanding for the Switch 2. In fact, lots of gamers took the opportunity to make use of that feature and revisit their Switch 2 along with their old Switch 1 games in that same handheld boost mode. And I, for one, was one of those gamers that did that with my Switch 1 and Switch 2 games. I did it with Mario and Sonic in the Olympic Games. That had a discount back in Martin Day. I also did it with a lot of other, Switch 1 games that I had. I had, I guess, Overcooked. What else? There was. Oh my god, I keep on forgetting. I guess Sparks of Hope. That was a Switch 1 game that I revisited. Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, and Splatoon 3. I had a lot of Switch 1 games that I sometimes, forget some of them. And I did revisit some of those Switch 1 games, sometimes on handheld boost, just to get that extra pixels of resolution with zero blur. I basically had fun. But getting back to the topic, handheld boost is, a very big thing to gaming. Gaming on Switch 2, I mean. You can even recognize how significant that is because Sony did a similar thing with the PS Portal. Not trying to make fun of the PS Portal or anything here, because it's great that we can play more quality based games now on the PS Portal. Now, they didn't exactly increase the resolution quality of games on the PS Portal because it still runs on, a 1080p screen, which is fine for a $200, PS Portal, kind of $300 now. We'll talk about that price increase later. But getting back to the topic, they fixed an ongoing issue that people had with the PS Portal's, bitrate quality. To put it in simple terms, the PS Portal had major issues with its mushy visuals and unclear textures and shadows. I mean, not everyone had a problem with that issue exactly, but some people were okay with the PS Portal's, blurry visuals and issues. They didn't really think much of those issues. But the majority clearly had an issue with it, which is why Sony finally addressed to it with their high quality mode that you can activate in the PS Portal settings. And it basically gives you sharper visuals and cleaner textures in that same 1080p screen. Again, we don't need a larger resolution on a handheld. We're talking about a handheld here. If it was on TV, then 4K might be what we're going after. But we're talking about a handheld console here. Although there's a catch to this similarity to the Switch 2's battery life consumption in handheld boost, because the level of internet that the system takes in is 3 times larger than what you have in the PS Portal standard mode. But other than that, if you have that much internet, in your house or something, then this is a great perk for the PS Portal. Because at least instead of, taking from your battery, it takes from your internet. I don't know if this is worse or better. It's kind of depends on the internet on your house. But other than that, it's a great perk for the PS Portal. And it also highlights the significance of the handheld boost for the Switch 2 as well. And similarly to other Switch 2 players, I already tried this feature and I loved it. I already told you that I tried this feature and I loved it. I played several of my Switch 2 games on this handheld boost mode, and it doesn't really make much difference, at first. But as I kept playing, I actually kind of enjoyed it. Playing on that full 1080p, resolution. Although I'm gonna have to remember to switch it back to standard mode. Every time I want to grab it with me and play it anywhere where I'm traveling, because I don't want the battery to drain, too fast while I'm traveling or anything. Handheld boost is amazing, but we gotta be careful, with managing the battery if you're playing it while traveling, anywhere. Unless you have a very powerful, power bank, which I have, but I'm still trying to manage, that battery usage and all. But anyways, that is everything that we're gonna talk about. Oh my god, we 18 minutes of yapping. Damn. That is gonna be a long video. I did not know that. We're gonna talk about the leaks in the next video, and then the video after that, we're gonna talk about the major issues that's going on with Nintendo. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more of my yapping with Nintendo, then you can hit the subscribe button. And I don't really know if you guys care much about it, but please share the video to some other Nintendo fans. I would really appreciate it. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!